What I loved about your Hall of Fame speech was, this
Hardcore.
kind of this real focus on kind of individuality and how you never let anyone change you. I mean, that
Yeah.
for me as a fan of your work for so many years, like, that's what always really defined you. I mean, were there times when you ever felt under pressure, like maybe when you first joined WWE, but you needed to change your style or do things a bit differently, or were you just,
Always, yeah.
yeah,
That's always been a part of my career. I got trained by the Sabu and the original Sheik, and they did instill the idea of being original in me. One thing Sabu said was, "Don't try and be like somebody else. There's already one of those somebody else. Just
mm,
be yourself and be different." And it wasn't so much trying to be different. It was more just not trying to be somebody else and seeing what came out of that and exploring outside of the box, so thinking of moves that I hadn't seen before that I thought were cool. I was doing the split-legged moonsault before my first match, like when I was in the kickboxing ring, I think I was doing that. And that the more I heard feedback from everybody else about how different I was, the more I owned it. But
yeah,
I don't think I really realized how I'm perceived as one of a kind until like in WWE when JR would talk about my unorthodox style and of course my song One of a Kind, and just the more I would see the feedback and everyone would say like he's so different, his offensive and his selling and the way he moves, and I've always liked that, like it kind of like I brushed my ego in the right way
yeah.
to where I wanted to put more energy into that being my identity.
Yeah, and I mean, when you came into WWE, you went straight into the main event fold pretty much, and then it felt that there was a period where you kind of moved more into the mid card, yet you always stood out. So even when you were trading back and forward over the Intercontinental title multiple times, you always were like an attraction that didn't quite fit into the mold of the rest of the programming. I think you never, in my mind, you never really changed, what who you were or how you came across. You were just RVD, and that's why the fans, have that connection with you.
There was always either older wrestlers or agents always trying to change me. A couple times that I think of. One was way back in 1991 in Charlotte, North Carolina. I wrestled Ricky Nelson, and I was telling him, before the match when I was talking to him, like, I'm acrobatic. I do all kinds of flips, and I'm a kickboxer, so I do kicks and splits. And he goes, "You do?" He goes, "Well, save it for the end." He goes, "Just do one kick at the end." I was like, "Oh, what?" Like, it broke my heart. Like, this guy doesn't you want to work with me? What the heck? And then it was just 2 years later, I guess, in '93, when I was in WCW and I was wrestling Rip Rogers, and he said the exact same thing. He said, "All that stuff that you do doesn't mean anything if you do it all the time." He goes, "Just save it. Save one kick for the end, and then that's gonna stand out, and that'll be your move." And I just was like, man, I remember like calling. I was so frustrated because you get advice from that's inconsistent. You don't know who
Sure.
to listen to. And I remember back then I still had the Sheik, and so I was able to pick his brand. And he was like, "F them, they don't know what they're talking about. You listen to me."
Yeah,
And
the
I was
Sheik knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
"Yeah." I was like, "That makes it easy, thank you."
Yeah. I've
Happened
had
a
it.
lot of stuff,
There's
handshakes, all kinds of stuff. Like they say, I'm shaking hands too stiff. He's like, "You grab their hand and squeeze it." I said, "Okay, cool."